Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all here today. And well, dear friends and colleagues, actually, welcome to the presentation of the Ukrainian translation of the Communities of Practice Guidebook. We are very happy to see all of you here. My name is Христина Яблонська, and I'm honored to open the space and start our meeting. Our meeting will be conducted in English, but we have actually translation today, and you can find an instruction in the chat. Please have a look and choose the option you want, Ukrainian or English. This is a very special moment for our team today, and we are truly glad that you are with us today. Appreciate it a lot. About today's plan, what to expect actually. Our meeting will last for 2 hours and will include two main parts. The first one will be dedicated to the story behind the translation and the conversation with our authors. And the second part will be a discussion of Ukrainian experience with communities with our invited guests. So we expect it to have today very interesting meeting. Those joining from Ukraine, remember that your safety is the first priority. And if you hear an air raid alert, please make sure you are at the safe place. For this reason, we are recording our meeting, so don't worry. You can come back to this video recording later, and we will share the video links also with you on LinkedIn and YouTube. Today, we invite you to take an active part in our today's session. Please write in a chat. Thank you for those who already done it. Ask all your questions, share your thoughts and experiences. Your presence and participation make this space more alive and meaningful. And once again, thank you for being with us today. It means a lot that you found the time and that you care about the topic of communities of practice. And now I have a pleasure and honor of giving the floor to Olga, who will start the first part of our meeting. Olga, please.
Thank you, Christina. Welcome, everybody. Today we are actually celebrating this Ukrainian translation of a very special book. It was written by Bevерлí and Etьєн. We are really honored to have you, both of you, here today. The book is Communities of Practice Within and Across Organizations, a guidebook. It was written together with two co-authors, and one of them, Fіл Рейд, is also here today with us. Thank you for you joining. We would like to have this session today as a real celebration, actually, with lots of joy. There was really nice music in the beginning. I enjoyed the soundtrack. I could see a lot of people did the same. Nice to see a lot of people join in. Nice to see that Bev and Etьєn are here. And if you don't know them yet, then Bevерлí and Etьєn are both consultants, but also thought leaders in the field of communities of practice and more broadly social learning. They have inspired a lot of us, I think many of us today. This project is also a bit of our heart project, I have to say, talking on behalf of the entire team. All of us this morning were a bit like, oh, nervous to go online and do the discussions, conversations. So we appreciate your understanding, because even speaking right now, I can hear my voice is trembling a bit. So yeah, we are ready to go ahead with maybe even more translations, because Bevерлí and Etьєn have some really interesting books, many of them. We are excited to go forward, but before we move anywhere, we thought today is the celebration. My name is Olga, my last name is Tarushina, and I've been working in the field of social learning for somewhere around 10 years now. Have been following Bevерлí and Etьєn's work for even more than that, I think. I speak out of Copenhagen in Denmark. And to everybody who is joining, or to everybody who is listening to the recording later, you are very welcome. I know that some people are maybe joining from a knowledge management perspective into this space today. Some others might be more community managers or leads. Maybe you are here simply because you are very curious about this field of social learning. And everybody who's joining, you are all very welcome. Today we celebrate the work of our largely really volunteer, really grassroots team. It was a self-sustained initiative in many respects. And yet we are incredibly dedicated, as you can see. We keep going until the book is there in your hands. We are here to mark a very important milestone. And I have to say that the guidebook is 95% ready in Ukrainian. And we still think 95% is worth celebrating because it's a lot of work we've put into it. 2 details about the team itself, because we are not celebrating only the guidebook, we are celebrating the effort that we've done. And the team itself, you have to know about us that almost none of us knew each other beforehand. We are around 10 people in this project. We got to know each other along the way in really nice ways, send each other spiritual and almost like almost personal hugs this morning because we thought it was an important project. So it's a privilege to hold this event today. We have to say another thing about the team as well, that we tried not to promise any big results or outcomes as we went. We just took small steps, small decisions at a time, and just focused on the best next outcome, whatever that looked like. Sometimes it was a tiny thing, just, you know, making a post on LinkedIn. Sometimes it was a bit bigger, finding a translator, for example. It's a privilege to hold the event, I have to say, as well today in English, because from my perspective and from a lot of other people, it's very important that us in Europe and the rest of the world can learn from the Ukrainian experience with communities of practice. So another point to celebrate are all the Ukrainian communities of practice that exist, that are out there. The way the whole story came together, just briefly, it was a community that Bevерлí and Etьєн created at one point for everybody who joined their workshops. And in that community, there was Valentin from Ukraine. And when the guidebook came out, we just had an idea, why not translating it into Ukrainian? A quick LinkedIn post, and then Christina joined us, Christina Merchuk. Thank you to you. She joined with all her sharp and really thoughtful questions. And then Victoria joined. Victoria, who just really literally just rolled up the sleeves like this and said, let's do it. Victoria went on planning, inviting people, finding editors, translators, but she will tell you in just a second of what she's done. Before I go and give the floor to her, I would like to say thank you to Ken Coops from SimCorp in Denmark. And Ken was one of the persons who encouraged us at very early stages just to keep going, because Ken has experience with communities of practice at SimCorp in Ukraine, which is a big part of the organization, a Danish SimCorp organization globally. Thank you for that. Another thank you I should say to Andrei Kuzmin. I don't know if he's here right now. I can't see Andrei right now, but Viva Ukraine helped us when we kind of ran into a hurdle of, oh, we need to have some kind of funding because we need to pay the editor, the translator, and the book designer. It's a huge piece of work. Thank you to you. And because we are so many people, we'd love to hear voices of the team as well, and everybody almost. Therefore, Victoria is the next one to take it over from me, so I stop talking.
Thank you, Olga. First, I want to say I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces, but for those who don't me yet, I'm briefly introduce myself. I'm Victoria Oleshko, a knowledge management consultant facilitator, and also I'm a co-founder and a leader knowledge management in Ukraine community. So let me continue the story. From our first meeting with Olga and Christina, it became clear that having an experienced interpreter, translator wouldn't be enough. Many terms from this guidebook didn't have established Ukrainian equivalents. So we would to choose them very carefully. Creating a terminology field from scratch is a big responsibility. That's why I wanted to make sure that different voices were heard. And so I decided to put together a whole team for the scientific review of the text. I invited my colleagues, Kristina Yablonska and Natalia Orlova. Together, we represent the knowledge management and facilitation communities. Then, from the academic sector, I invited Natalia Halas. And from the community management field, I reached out to Miroslava Tkachuk. And then she involved Alla Zhdaň. I want to note here that I hadn't met Miroslava and Alla before. I saw Miroslava at one public event and just messaged her on Facebook. And she answered immediately and agreed to help us. So Miroslava, Alla, and Natalia became consultants on our project. They contributed to the discussions around the terminology and helped us to design the book. Then Natalia Orlova brought in our translator, Oksana Alinik, and later our designer, Samira Timchenko, while I invited an editor, Miroslava Kirilchuk. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to tell more about all our team, but we've prepared a website where you can find more details, and we'll put a link here in the chat. So this is how we formed a large team from 5 different countries, bringing together representatives of several different communities. For me, this first and foremost a story about uniting efforts of very different people. I am deeply grateful to all of you for these efforts. No one said no. Everybody agreed at once, and thanks to you, this project became possible. It was also fascinating to watch how our project grew and evolved. At first, it was a very simple idea. Let's translate the text. Let's put it on the author's website for downloading. But then one idea after another started to appear. Let's organize a presentation with authors. Let's hold a webinar on personal knowledge management to raise additional funds for our project. Let's launch a study circle to read these books together. Let's create a new cover for Ukrainian edition that tells our own story. And so instead of small project, it became something much, much bigger. Probably it is a reason why we didn't meet our original deadlines. But in the end, the project became even more beautiful. Now I'd like to hand it over to Samira, our designer. She will show us the book, how the book looks like, and share the story behind the cover.
Hi everyone. First of all, do you hear me? Is everything okay? Okay, great. So first of all, I'm really grateful to be involved because I have been working with communities for a long time, but actually in this project, I'm a designer. So it's a very unique experience. So thank you, team. It was great. And now we will start to take a look at the visual part of the book, and you will have a lot of time to discuss the essence of the knowledge. So I will try to share the picture with you. Give me a second. Do you see the picture?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So actually, let's start a bit about the book design in general. The book has 9 sections, and each one had a monochrome divider between the parts. Our idea was to make these dividers in monochrome, and after they come together to form deep and rich cover, reflecting how different part of community knowledge came together to create something unique and meaningful. So we hope you will enjoy the fresh colors of the book. And probably the most important, which I want to tell to you now, is the story about the cover. We have, at the beginning of our discussion, we decided that we want to reflect the to capture the really unique Ukrainian context. So, and we started to work with the cover. Actually, we used a human-centered design, which means that we made a design session, testing and feedback. And after first iteration, we picked up 2 covers and still have had a feeling that something was missing, so we did the second iteration. And thanks to Ksenia Yemshina, I hope she's here. I saw her in Zoom. So hi, Ksenia. We did the third cover because she brought us a beautiful picture with a fire. And so we were done with with a short list with 3 covers and sent them to the authors. And actually, voila, I hope I will, yeah. Cover is here. Now you can see our cover and is a winner of our top 3. And now I want to tell you shortly about the story of the cover because the story is very meaningful and deep. This photo was taken during Molodvish. Molodvish is the annual event for young activist, community builder in Ukraine. And this evening was very special. It was a memorial for very tragic loss. Just days before that event, the Russian killed Yarka Bazilevich, one of the coordinator of Molodvish, along with her sisters and mother. So this photo very important for many community builders in Ukraine from many perspectives. And actually this cover carries many meanings for a community, and we are sure you can find your own meanings looking for this cover and your own association. But I would like to highlight right now one of them, that this very specific ability of Ukrainian community to make a post-traumatic growth in communities. And I think that this cover shows the strengths and resilience that can come after the great loss. So this is a short story of this cover. I hope you inside you will find a little bit more about the full story, about the circle which you see here. But for now, I would like to wish you really inspireful reading, and we hope that this book, visual part and not only visual part, of course, will help you to create the great communities in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine. So I think that's it. Thank you for listening. I stop share. Yeah, we can move on. I think if you have some questions.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
I'm
you
very
so
touched by this story. Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia Orlova, and it's such a joy to be here with you today as we launch the Ukrainian translation of Communities of Practice Guidebook. For me, this is a very practical and very inspiring resource for anyone working in the field of education, learning, collaboration, and community building. And inside the book, you'll find the answers to the question, what is a community of practice? And also the practical guidance on how to launch, how to facilitate, cultivate, sustain, evaluate community of practice. And along the way, you enjoy real life stories from our authors from different contexts. And my invitation today, please don't read this book alone. Read it with others. Actually, to accompany this translation, we already launched a reading circle in April 2025. And this circle meets every 2 weeks. And it's actually inspired by the Scandinavian tradition of study circles, where people come together, read, reflect, exchange the experience, and co-sense meaning. These sessions for us become a space of connection and insight. And we are already considering a second round in early autumn. So if this sparks your curiosity, we'd love to welcome you in our circle. And now, please join me in welcoming the authors of this beautiful book, Community of Practice Guidebook. Bev, Etьєн, Phil. It's a true honor for me and for us all to have you here with us today. And I'd like to invite you briefly introduce yourself. Please tell your name, where you are joining from, and tell us about your connection to the field of community of practice. Let us start. So, Etьєн, over to you.
Okay, my name is Etьєн Vенґер-Trейнер, and I am joining from Portugal, Sesimbra, Portugal, where Bev and I are running something that we call the Social Learning Lab. And that's a place where we invite people to come and experiment with social learning, learn what it is for, how to do it, and all that. And I've been working on community of practice for a very long time, about more than 30 years, both on the theory and on the practical side.
Mm-hmm. Bev?
Hi, I'm Bev Vенґер-Trейнер. We're actually in the same room. You can see Etьєн around there.
Yeah, and there is a reason for it.
Yeah, so we work together, we work across disciplines, we work across countries, we work across sectors, across different types of organizations who want to cultivate community practice. We do that, we write the books, and we run workshops on community practice, but also social learning more generally.
Yeah, thank you. Phil, nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Phil. I'm joining from Glasgow. I work at JP Morgan Chase. I spent most of my career as a software engineer, but for the last 9 years, I've been leading our Ignite initiative, which you can see all over the place on my screen. Bharti from my team has also joined from Bangalore in India. I've been involved with communities of practice for about 9 or 10 years. The whole story is in the guidebook, but it's something that really benefited me and inspired me to launch the Ignite initiative, which is now rather enormous and covers a lot of communities at JPMC. So glad to be here and been very interested to hear updates from this group as you've been doing this, because it is a huge amount of work you've done. So it's nice to see you all today.
And you can see that Phil and his colleagues came to the Social Learning Lab in Portugal, and they gave us all shirts from their initiative. So that's a little bonus that comes from helping them with the initiative.
Great. Thank you for your introduction. Let us dive into our conversation, and I think that we will start from the very beginning. As one of our guests actually coined the term community of practice. So my first question is to you, Etьєн. How did the term community of practice emerge? And how did you observe the phenomenon and describe community of practices?
Well, actually, it started very, very simply. there was a report in the US about the problems with education called A Nation at Risk. And a guy called John Seely Brown, who was at the time the head of research at Xerox PARC, where the mouse was invented and what we use today as computers. He had this idea that maybe schools of education will do research on education, but somebody should look at learning and rethink how we think about learning, so that maybe with new theories of learning, we could imagine new institutions, new schools, new ways to support learning. So that was the idea of that institute. And so for me, I was coming from computer science, artificial intelligence at the time. It was in 1986, 87. And so the idea that this person had was to bring scholars from different disciplines to work together and rethink learning. And so for me, I was coming from a more technical field and cognitive science, but I started to work with an anthropologist coming from a different field. And we started to look, she had done some studies of apprenticeship, traditional apprenticeship in Africa, how young tailors become master tailors. And so we say, that is interesting, because apprenticeship has been with the human species for a very long time, long before there were schools. And so we started to think, why don't we look at different cases of apprenticeship in different domains and see if there is something we can learn from that, And one thing that we observed every time we looked across different cultures about apprenticeship is that people think of the apprenticeship as a relationship between a master and an apprentice. But when you look at what's actually happening in practice, the learning does not happen very often directly between the master and the apprentice, because the master is just too impressive. If you are a young apprentice, you go ask someone else what to do, And so there was this thing around the master of all these apprentices at different levels, and we needed a name for it, and we called it a committee of practice. So this is how the term was born. We had no idea at the time that, more than 30 years later, almost 40, we would be talking about this with a group of people from Ukraine. No idea. We just needed a name to talk about what we were observing, and this is how the term was born.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this beautiful story. It's very insightful. And I'd like to hear from Bev and Phil if you want to add something to the concept.
Well, really to say that the theory has developed a lot since then. So it's not stuck in the time of a sort of apprentice model and people learning from that. Now, because we developed the learning theory, people sometimes forget, but it's really how are we developing learning capability? And how are we developing learning capability when there's no existing knowledge about it? It's not in a book. It's not, right? So in times, particularly now, where there's a great uncertainty, this idea that people are learning from and with each other to make a difference that they care about is where we are with the theory now, taking it really into the 21st century and beyond.
And I think what Bev is highlighting is important to mention, is that fairly quickly after the theory first came out, we started to see the same process happening, but without a master. We saw, especially in business, because business were the quickest field to take up those ideas, lots of committees of practice of engineers, who talked with each other about, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? How do we solve this problem? But there was no master. They were inventing the practice, and that to us, it was an important shift in the theory from a place where all the knowledge was embodied in the master and everybody was trying to become that master, to a shift of the community of practice where nobody knows the answer, but everybody is working together to try to say, okay, how do we do this? How do we improve our practice? So there was an important shift in the theory and in the practice also, because each organization started to think, maybe we have some communities, maybe we should support them, maybe we should recognize them, maybe they exist in our organization and nobody knows about them. So the concept of community of practice came into these businesses and gave people a language to recognize something that was already happening and to say, okay, maybe we should help that,
Yeah,
It sounds so natural. Yeah, Phil. So what is your perspective?
yeah, I think the term may have been invented a long time ago, but the concept is timeless. Things have moved on a lot since 1991 or whenever it was, but I always like to say that the beauty of communities of practice and social learning is that it's people in the middle of it, people with uncertainty, learning from and with each other. And yes, I think a brief example from me of kind of the genesis of my involvement in the guidebook, those learning moments where, as Etьєн just said, the communities of practice term and everything that goes with it quite often is just giving a common language to describe things that you're already doing. So I had the privilege of visiting Bev and Etьєн for the first time in 2018 in California. And I'll never forget just sitting, hearing from them about some of the basics of communities of practice, and all the time light bulbs going off in my mind of that's what that's called, or that's a term that we can use for that. And we started our project. We had a social learning leadership project that we were starting at that time. And Bev and Etьєn happened to show me a draft of the guidebook that they had been writing. So I was like absolutely delighted to find that, because I wanted to know more about how I could apply some of this to the communities of practice that we have. And just to add them, that's kind of where the whole thing began. But for us at JP Morgan, I think the role of communities is only going to become more and more important in the age of AI. People are, people are unsettled in some ways by the speed of advancement of technology. But as humans, we will always need to connect with each other and learn and understand and give meaning to the world around us. So I think the role of communities of practice at JP Morgan, and hopefully more broadly in what we're seeing today, this is only going to accelerate to keep the humanity around us and have that social connection.
Thank you, Phil, for sharing this. It's really fascinating how COPs became an integral part of many organizations. For example, me, I was working for Jacobs Engineering lately, and a community of practice communities are a big part of their culture. And also communities of practice is important in spaces in between. And I'd love to explore how COP have evolved over last time, and do you consider newer generation influencing how these communities are cultivated and matured?
Well, I guess the way, because practice is always changing, the way people do things is always changing. In a way, that just keeps it dynamic anyway, because a community of practice is never looking at, or it may look at the past, but not as the answer, but as one piece of the possible puzzle. And so they're always changing with circumstances and events. And so there's always new ideas coming up as to how to solve problems how to connect around those problems. And so in a way, just by what they are, they're always changing, and how you cultivate them. Well, yes, how you cultivate them, because it depends on the people and the practice, that's always changing. So it's new generations and new communities.
I would just add that that's partly why I describe them as timeless, because the concept stays, but the way people do it changes. And when you look at the guidebook, we have the theory and ideas. When you compare the example that I've contributed with our Ignite initiative, on the other hand, you have people who are having a community of practice at the front line in war zones, negotiating hostage releases and all kinds of things, which is an incredibly different construct and concept to having communities of practice at JP Morgan, which is a bank, and it's technologists learning the latest things. So I think it's also why the guidebook is intended to be just a list of ideas. It's not intended to be, this is how you do it, because the context differs. The way people learn, the way people practice is always changing. And it's not just a point in time, it varies massively between one community to the other, even if they're working in the same organization.
Yeah, and I think I want to say, just to clarify also, is you don't need to intentionally cultivate communities of practice. There are communities of practice around which have never been cultivated. I would imagine, for example, I mean, I often think of the guys in Ukraine who are working on drones, right? There is a practice there of drones in wartime, which they are inventing, right? And so they may not call themselves a community of practice, but I can well imagine that how it works is they ask each other, oh, you did that? How exactly did you do that? And did it work? Did it not work? Oh, it didn't work that. Maybe we could tweak it and adapt it like that. There is, I am sure, a thriving community of practice there. They probably don't for one moment call themselves a community of practice. And I suspect around Ukraine, there are many budding communities of practice, which may or may not be cultivated. But at some point, somebody might say, let's be more intentional about developing our learning capability, whether it's drones, whether it's rebuilding houses, all these things that we don't yet know how to do, right? And we've got to learn how to do it. So that's what I mean when I say circumstances also change the way that it's cultivated, and you don't need a book for it, and you don't need anything for it, but the language of doing it helps people to be able to recognize it and support it and do things with it.
And actually, I'd like to emphasize this point that both Phil and Bev made about constantly changing and getting ideas from a book. Actually, when you think about it, it took us, 30 years to write a guidebook, you know? And actually, we were even hesitant until Phil said, you gotta make this public. People need this, you know, when you read a draft at the end. Because, you know, the problem when you write a book is that people think you know what you're doing, you know? And so they say, oh, these are experts in communities of practice. We must implement their book, you know? And that's why we were hesitant to write a guidebook, because we didn't want to crystallize the practice, you know? Because people have to be inventive. And I think that's what Phil was saying. It's a series of ideas for people to pick up and transform and invent with. And as Bev was saying, it's already happening. So it's really important that the guidebook is not something to implement, but something to be inspired by, you know, and to be creative and inventive. So I think for us, we've always been a little hesitant to produce a guidebook that people would think, oh, this is the Bible, and we need to implement that. That's often what happens with the book, and it's very dangerous. Because when something is written, because Bev and I, when we go do our consulting work, we're constantly reinventing, We don't follow a guidebook. We are constantly reinventing, And so we didn't want to freeze this into a text,
And I can confirm that is the case. When I first met Bev and Etьєн, I expected to be taught. But every time I've been to see them at the social learning lab or met them on Zoom, they just participate like everyone else. They are just curious. I mean, if someone gave me one word to describe both Bev and Etьєн, it would be curious. They don't come across as experts. They're in the group, exploring and learning with other people. And I think that's the essence of it. And that's why that's how it helps to avoid the perception of the apprentice and the master, or the student and teacher.
Thank you for sharing all these awesome points. Now I'd like to explore the significance and the future of social learning. How might it continue to develop? What do you think?
Well, I can give an example of the way I see it in my job, in my context. We have been growing communities and cultivating communities for nearly 10 years. And across JP Morgan, we have 256 of them at the moment. So there are people all over the world doing this, and they love the idea of learning together. Our company is the biggest bank in the world by some measures, and we invest an enormous amount of money in technology, and specifically on things like AI, like I mentioned earlier. And yet, amidst all of the focus on technology, the communities they just keep growing. The whole thing just keeps growing without us even doing anything to particularly push it, because I feel that the way this is going is, I kind of touched on it earlier as well, is that people want to find social connections. It's not just about learning, it's a social connection. It's a cultural thing. And that's one of the reasons why I think in our setting it continues to grow, and if anything, it grows even more quickly. Because it gives you a home when everything's changing around you. And it looks like that's maybe what forgive me if I'm assuming, my observation seems to be that the group that's been doing this translation work, lots of things have been changing around you, lots of uncertainty, lots of worries, and yet having that social connection and learning and exploring together gives you that sense of kind of belonging and comfort as you're learning and developing this together. So I think it's just going to keep growing. That's the way I would see it as developing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
I think that AI is really pushing the envelope. It's really making it very clear that we have already all the knowledge, all the tools. There's so much that we have at our disposal as humans, but we're still not making things work. There's something else that needs to happen. It's connecting the dots of people. So somehow our practice is behind. We need to develop the practice of doing things. So we need to be able to do things and to connect with each other around doing things in ways which it's becoming much clearer now that we as humans are better at. AI can do the knowledge. AI can do all sorts of things, but it can't do the connecting people. It can't do the meaningful stuff, and it's not going to necessarily make us know how to. Well, bring back the drone example, it's not going to, we can't use AI to tell us the answer as to how to create the right drone, or how to solve the war, or how to solve hunger. All right. We've actually got all the information that we need. We need to be doing other things, which is bringing people together around what actually happens in practice and what's working or not working. So I think that it's going to grow. We have 3 dimensions in the latest part of the theory, which is people in social learning spaces, which is communities of practice are made up of social learning spaces. People in that space care to make a difference, and they don't quite know how to, and so they engage uncertainty around how to do it. And they pay attention to what other people are saying and doing, and what works and what doesn't work, in order to drive the practice along. And I think we are going to see more and more of that, where people really care to make a difference and have to engage their uncertainty in order to be able to do it, and have to get really good at paying attention to what's working and not working.
And
Bev, thank you for this perspective. I would like to
now-
add from the chat, and we'll pass to you, Etьєн. Christina Yablonska wrote in the chat that this human connection is becoming the real priority in communities today. So, Etьєn, what is your perspective?
I just wanted to say that, you know, I think that the field of social learning theory and practice, of which communities of practice is a part, is just beginning. It's just scratching the surface, you know, because there is slowly a discovery that we need to develop a learning theory for the 21st century. You know, like Bev was saying, we don't know so many things we don't know. There's so much uncertainty everywhere. And slowly, different fields, like, you know, like in education, for instance, right? In education, the social learning theory and the concept of community of practice have mostly been used to connect teachers so they can learn how to be better teachers, which is great. But it's only a very small use of the theory. You know, what does education mean in the 21st century? What does it mean to be a student in a school from a social learning perspective? Not from, this is the curriculum, we're going to put it in your head and test if it has made it. You see, there's a whole transformation of the perspective that needs to happen there. Government, you know, we think of government as setting the rules, you know, but we don't think of government as enabling learning capability. You know, that's a whole other perspective on what it means to do government. If you start thinking of not finding certainty and creating laws to implement that certainty, but allowing uncertainty to exist in a productive way. So I think we, you know, if we survive in long enough as a species, there is a whole universe, you know. I mean, you know, how do we do international development? You know, as Vez was saying, how do we use learning to develop peace? It's interesting. We just the other day we discovered that the field of international relationships, which is a subfield of political science, there was a person who was saying, we always think of international relation as relationship between national powers. But what we need to really understand what's going on, we need to look at this communities of practice that negotiate those relationships and build these relationships in practice. So slowly, different fields are starting to think, okay, we need to start thinking about the real process of learning in practice. And so, yeah, sometimes I think, you know, yeah, that maybe, I don't know if the human species is going to last long enough to really realize the full potential of that perspective on the human species as a learning species. You know? Voilà. Okay. This is my little thing.
Thank you, Etьєн, and awesome points from all panelists. Unfortunately, our time is over, and I'm very thankful for your valuable contribution today. I'm very thankful for the book you wrote, and I hope our audience has a lot of insight. Thank you for being with us. And I'd like to hand it over to my co-host, Christina.
Thank you, Natalia. Actually, it looks like we are moving forward very beautifully from international experience to Ukrainian perspectives. But before we begin the second part of our event, we have a short questions for you. Actually, I see that Olga wrote in the chat, it would be great to see how active we all are in different communities. Well, that's a chance to know it. I will share my screen with one short questions in Mentimeter. I hope everything is visible for you. Yeah, and please share with us how many communities are you part of. Just think about all communities you are part of and write one number. And we will see what our power, community power is today. And I will share also with you a link in here in the chat. Yeah. And let's see what, wow, 10, 3. What other options do we have? 20, wow, unexpected. Okay. Looks like that 3 is like the main number. 3 communities, 17, even 20. Who can propose even more? Great, great. Thank you for sharing this. It's very interesting to know this information. And well, actually, we are ready to talk now about more about Ukrainian experience in communities.
I'm trying to guess here, and I will be taken slightly over for you, Christina. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to guess 20. Is that somebody who's facilitating communities of practice professionally? Or if anybody could just post in the chat area, like just an explanation of those bigger numbers. I personally put in 3 with a philosophy, a bit of community of practice, social learning, and just a kind of personal interest community that I'm joining. But yeah, really excited to hear. I am, as I said in the beginning, Olga, I think I managed to calm a little bit down on my excitement of just being here with all of you today. We are moving on to the part that is dedicated to the Ukrainian communities of practice. And as much as we left the book, we thought, it's fine, it's not 100% ready, because for today, we would like to look at the Ukrainian communities of practice just as much. Everybody who's interested in the Bevерлí and Etьєn's work can go to their website. It's probably in the chat already. If it's not there, then I'm sure Christina will help me to put the link. Explore the website until in the short time that we are finishing kind of the last editing details. You can look at it and get inspired. But for today, I think we have more inspiration coming, which is the different Ukrainian communities of practice. We'd like to have the rest of our time today, almost like an hour, dedicated to the cases, the examples, people who are behind communities of practice in Ukraine, but also much beyond Ukraine, actually, because we're not limiting the scope of people's work only to one country. A lot of us here today are also working internationally. So yeah, the question is going to be based on our curiosity, and I think, Bevерлí, you said somewhere in your presentation on your answers to the questions Natalia asked, that curiosity is really important. That's what we are going to highlight for the next 40 minutes. Curiosity about the experience with communities of practice in Ukraine, especially these days, what's new, what's emerging, what's unfolding. So to tell you just a bit more of how the next 40 minutes are going to go, we chose to spend the time with some specific people, and we are going to invite Christina Mirchuk, who's already here. We're going to invite Ken Coops. We are going to invite Christina, who's just been helping to facilitate, but she's going to be the speaker here as well. Ken Coops, Dan, I'm sorry if I pronounce your last name not properly. I struggle with my own last name quite often. I teach people how to say it, and Vlad is here as well. So we are going to have a conversation, very much a conversation, and I'm trying to model it right now to keep slowly so our translators in the other channel can keep up. I think I did it way too fast in the beginning, so don't do like me in the beginning, do like Beth, Etьєн, and Phil. Speak slowly, answer the question, and then there is only one rule for the discussion going forward that everybody is going to listen to. People joining, listening are welcome to post their questions in the chat, but I would like us to have one rule, which is to be curious about each other's practice, to encourage questions, ask questions directly to each other as we start speaking. And then I have prepared some few questions on my own side in case nothing of what we say resonates with everybody, right, with the other people. But I'm expecting I'm not going to have to ask them somehow. I'm sure that will be a different kind of flow. So the first rule, or the only one rule that I have really, is to be curious and ask each other questions. And the small number 2 kind of sub rule is, if you would like to speak, let's use the raise hand function so we don't talk over each other, because that will help our translators in the other channel. Yeah, the main thing I would like to talk about is what's emerging in the experience you have with communities of practice in Beyond Ukraine. And I will actually start with Christina. But before you go, Beth, Etьєн, and Phil, I have a special favor to ask you of. If you could think while you're listening, what kind of things you get curious about, what you would like to hear more of, or is there any kind of questions that comes to your mind as you listen? In the end of the 40 minutes, we will give you some time to just reflect. And I'm sure everybody who is here will be like, oh, what do Beth and Etьєn think about our discussion, or what is interesting for them? Phil, you are included in this reflection panel in the end. So yeah, we'll start like now. And I would like to ask Christina, because Christina, you are both connected to a lot of Ukrainian projects, work with communities in and beyond Ukraine, but you also have this Spanish perspective because you live in Spain these days. So how does it look for you? What do you notice when you think of the practice of facilitating communities of practice or maturing and developing them? Anything else you do in your practice?
Yeah, also I would first of all say hello to everyone. So happy to be here. So and celebrating with all of you, also our achievements. Yeah, also just a bit about my cultural and professional experience. I bring two hats on, so from learning development and also from knowledge management. And yeah, also originally from Ukraine, but studied and worked about 10 years in Germany and different kind of the industries and NGOs. But also the last 8 years I'm working and also I'm self-employed and situated in north of Spain in Basque Country. This is also not the same as the rest of Spain. So just to also have some detail on my background and my experience. And so to the experience with the communities of practice in Ukraine, in the last, the previous reading cycle, we were speaking and giving our feedback, and also I was just overwhelmed about this energy and all these experiences, communities, different kind of communities, formal, informal communities that are created or will be creating in Ukraine and across also. And this is one experience or big experience from few years. Also, another experience here from communities of praxis within and across Ukraine. It's a program boot. Also, some mentees are now also hearing us. Also, hello to all of you. And this what is also inspired. And another experience, also culture experience, living and working in Spain. Also this inspire, also this unbelievable energy and experience that I heard and lived in all these cycles and communities situated in Ukraine made me reflect on what I am seeing and living the previous years and also now also in presence. And this is also my very short resume, so that the people here, they are not really seeing, also just to also continue what was also speaking in the previous section, also with Bev and Etьєн, the people here are not really seeing so this importance of sharing knowledge or learning together. And this is not something what is happening now. It's something maybe cultural. I will not be giving the reasons why it is, but also some of them would say also silo thinking, or the people see competition or collaboration. This is a really big difference for me. And so what I see that the community of praxis maybe don't require these perfect conditions, because also they require this real connection, shared purpose, and also willingness to learn from each other. Also this is maybe what I will send as my observation here to the world, also resourced Western Europe, and first of all, also my lived experience in Spain. Thank you.
I can't see anybody else raising the hand, and you're welcome to do that as somebody else is speaking, so you have some thoughts to share afterwards. But I'll give it over to Ken, because Ken, you have a somewhat related position, I think, compared to Christina. I know you worked a lot in Ukraine, and a lot of your communities are out of Ukraine or driven by Ukrainian colleagues. Could you share maybe some of your ideas on what's new, what's emerging, what communities of practice for you at SimCorp?
Well, I can try, at least. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ken. I head up learning communication in SimCorp. We've been active in Ukraine for more than 15 years now. We have probably more than 300 people working in Kiev today. So from a professional standpoint, we obviously have tons of experience with setting up various communities of practice in sort of a professional setup. I think I'm going to try to latch on to something that you said, Christina, because I'm in the very lucky situation that I'm engaged to a Ukrainian woman as well, which means that I have a little bit of private interaction with Ukraine as well. And I think one of the things that's always struck me about this is, I'm joining from Copenhagen, I'm Danish. If you put two Danes together in a room and they have any kind of shared interest, they will, within 5 minutes, they will either create a club, they will make a union, they will create a society, they will create some kind of formalized community around it. That is just absolutely guaranteed. It is part of the Danish ether, it is part of who we are in it. And I think one of the things that I've noticed, and this is, please slap me in the chat if I'm way off base here, but it seems to me to be a little bit different in Ukraine. There's in the workspace, absolutely yes, completely leaning in and being curious and all these things. But in the private space, it's a little different. I think maybe there is I always found that Ukrainians have fairly healthy distrust of authorities in it, where in Denmark we are probably a little more social democratic, for want of a better word. We expect things to work in it, and I don't know, maybe that's where it comes from. But obviously the situation right now is, and for the past 3 years, has been very, very different in it. And now I can't see on my screen, but Bev, if you're still on the call, some of my friends are active in the, let's call it the private drone creation industry in Ukraine, and they definitely call it communities of practice. So I think the whole way that Ukraine today is rallying around this common cause has actually built us a lot. And this is also what Etьєн said earlier, that this is not something for implementation, it's something for inspiration, which is why we've been incredibly honored to support this, not just because obviously Etьєн and Bev are both legends in this field, but because this is something that can actually do a lot of good in it, not as something that you go out and say, okay, you implement this A, B, C, and then you're done in it, but as a tool, as an inspiration for sort of the movement that is happening in Ukraine right now. I think this is the opportunities that you created. So to you, Olga and Victoria and Natalie and Smaya and Christina and all of you behind this, just a huge thank you from me.
Oh, is Ken frozen? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I just stopped talking.
You stopped moving as well. I couldn't see if you're still there. I will just throw one small sub-question, like if you have anything related to communities of practice, what's the new kind of initiatives that you are trying to launch or do something going forward next years? Is there any kind of new pilot you're trying to run, test some new activities? What's the new kind of thing? I'm still trying to probe people into thinking of what's going on that's new, that's interesting, that could have not been seen maybe other places or other countries. But I can see Alla would like to join the conversation as well. You don't have to answer my question. I'm just planting some ideas of which kind of direction we could go. So after you, over to you.
I didn't want to interrupt. I wanted you to like ask a question because I think it's important to get all the, the shades of the answers and to get your idea fully. I just wanted to be the next to speak. So if Ken wants to make some comments. Yeah, so I'm very happy to be here and I'm so excited because I found out today and now within these last minutes that I have much more in common with you guys, and I had been living into Germany on Rügen. So Christina, hi. And I'm happy that we have something in common. And also my favorite city is Copenhagen. So Ken, I'm also have something in common with you. This is, I think, amazing. And I'm Alashdan, and Olga was like almost perfectly interpreted my surname, so I'm so happy about that too, because it's an issue. I've been working in a big corporate world, in IT company, one of the biggest in Ukraine, and it's always a question if your surname will be pronounced correctly or not. But as I've mentioned, I've been working with communities of practice in corporate big world with internal and both external communities, and I always was promoting this idea of community of practice with a domain, community, and practice as this triangle. And it was important for me to bring this idea of Etьєн to the corporate world as well, because it's important to understand what's a real community of practice. So I think this is a point of like retention, is a point of internal community, when if you have a strong internal community of practice inside the company, inside IT company, you can bring this value to people to stay in these companies and to give them a lot of opportunities to participate in cool activities, to do something together, to learn together, of course. So this is like a point that I was always promoting and working on. And also it's about external communities. It's about HR marketing. It's about the way your community feels to people externally. And if you see that there is a strong community and people are doing awesome things together, study together, teach each other, of course, too, you see it externally and you want to be a part of this company, because this is a value that you can bring to these people, and you can see, you can join my community and stand shoulder to shoulder with awesome people there. They are already in this cool community and you can be a part of it. So this is what I'm mostly promoting, and this is my domain, like corporate tech communities. And I see a big importance of communities of practice here. So yeah, and I'm very happy to be here. And I think that during our conversation, I'll get more and more common themes with you all, and I'm so excited about it.
Can I ask you, Alla, just one thing you maybe want to share, like are you working on going forward this year, for example, any new community initiatives, any new things you're trying, any pilots, any ideas? I know it could be rather rough. I mean, I'm trying to run some workshops here in Denmark for almost like the level of board members and senior leaders to understand communities of practice. It's a real big pilot. I'm not sure how many people are going to join, but what's new for you?
This year, actually, I decided that I want to meet community managers from all Europe and ask them about their experience, the way they study community management, what the things that inspire them. And I have a plan to meet community managers from 42 European countries by the end of this year. So you can all wish me good luck, but I'm already on 12th country and 13th story. And this is amazing, you know, I've never thought that in Bosnia and Herzegovina I can like get acquainted with someone, but I already know several community managers from this country, from Croatia, from Belgium. It's just a great way to get inspiration from myself, to learn from them, because the domains of those communities and those people who are working on those communities are totally different. Web3, marketing, gaming, law, like the real lawyers who are united in the community, and there is a community manager who engages them. So it's amazing too. And yeah, this is what I'm doing in format of podcast and blogging, and I have these stories shared in my platform. This is what excites me the most, and I'm so happy to do that. And I fingers crossed, I'll have all 42 countries by the end of the year.
Well, ambitious plans. I love that. I'm not gonna ask people to speak unless somebody would like to. Ken, you're welcome to join in.
I was just clapping.
I take it as a hand that was raised, so maybe you still want to join and say a few things. Otherwise, I'll give the space for others to think.
Yeah, I was waiting
what else is coming?
a lot to add anything, so but if you're ready, please.
Yeah, sure. Hi there. I'm really happy to be here. And I was a person that wrote 20 communities, because I'm not sure that I'm like really in 20 communities, but there are like a lot of them. Only I think 3 of them I'm like part of managing, because yeah, I'm working as a community manager in Mate Academy, and I'm working with alumni community. It's not really the clear community of practice, because we have like different spheres. We have developers, we have testers, we have designers, marketers, and so on. I think our practice is career developing, and we helping our graduates to build their careers. So I think that's the point of this practice. Yeah, but also I'm a part of different. So I have different spheres of my life, and I'm also active runner and doing triathlons. So other part is kind of these runners and triathlons communities. So it's also kind of communities of practice with this special stuff. But I think the main community of practice which I'm working on, and which is like my large passion, is Spільноти, and it's the community which we developed together with Alla and other guys who are not here today, but they are also take part. It's a Ukrainian community of community managers and other people who engaged in community building, because in Ukraine, it's kind of really new job, and there are not really much people with title community manager. It could be kind of HR, SMM manager, project manager, but they are working with communities. So we try to unite like everyone. And yeah, we are doing different learning sessions, webinars, discussions. We've launched a course, the first like full course for community managers in Ukraine, together with Ukrainian Catholic University, and it will be like second group will take part in it in July, yeah, on the beginning of July. Yeah, and that's kind of my part of communities of practice is community managers. So it's interesting because yeah, it's really new sphere in Ukraine. We have a lot of our like local specialities, because like our ability to unite and to build connections in face of dangerous and the war. I think it's one of the points why we are still here and why Russia can't win this war. So yep, it's an interesting context, and that's my point of touch with communities of practice.
I have just another sub question, maybe, Vlad, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I've been also thinking people are doing a lot of community work altogether. That's a discovery that I think we made throughout the project, that there are so many people already doing and working with communities of practice in or outside of Ukraine, and getting to know all of you was amazing. So I've been thinking if there's anything that, if you think of your experience over the past couple of years and then going forward, what kind of part of your practice gives you more joy in a way? What is the part that you enjoy most that you would like to kind of keep doing going forward? And that's a question to everybody. I mean, it doesn't have to be only Vlad, or maybe Christina, when you start talking, I could give you that twist or that direction as well, but you're always welcome to say whatever is on your minds.
Yeah, I could share some thoughts about it. I think my the most favorite part is connection with people. That's why I don't like just reading something and chatting with AI about like how to build communities. So yeah, this connection and this networking part is I think the most enjoyable in this work. Yeah, and other part, if we talk about Metaspільнота, is that we are working like on the edge of new sphere, and yeah, and making things that hasn't been done before, like but by anybody, and it's really great to see how some translations, some webinars, some interactions are living their own lives. And when I like meet some new community manager who is like new in this sphere, like, and they say, oh, I've read the community canvas and I see that you've translated it into Ukrainian. And I say, yeah, and that's really great, because we are like creating this sphere in Ukraine together. Yeah, and it's given me a lot of dopamine. I think I'm a bit dopamine addicted in this in this case with work. So yeah.
I see 3 hands. Who wants to go first?
I will continue as just said Vlad, that so my motivation to work closely, very close with different kind of communities of praxis, on international level, is to learn, But I think, also, for example, in also not just to learn, but the first reason would be the to learn, no? Also to make, also open my horizon, make widely. So not all of us understand this. So that is for free there. Also if you give, you will. Also sharing is caring, and if you are giving, you are also receiving. So and it's always really also interesting that you will be surprised always about the what you don't know, you can't know that you will learn. So it's always also this faster way to learn new horizons, new perspectives. This way, also through working on within communities of practice. This is the first reason, and I will stay by the first reason. Christina, you wanted also add something?
Yeah. I just want to add that I'm actually, it's a big honor for me to be here today and to talk with you and to hear all your stories, because, well, it's hard for me to say that I'm a community manager, because I'm more L&D manager, more working with facilitation groups and so on. But also, I can say that I'm passionate about communities. And I'm like ambassador of different communities, and I'm leading several communities in internal communities in a company, and different others, not only communities of practice, but also volunteering communities, and it's also very important nowadays. And I truly believe in power of community building, of connection we can build across those communities. And actually make step back to community management like sphere in Ukraine. Yeah, actually it's a new one approach here in Ukraine, but talking about communities culture, I think it's very natural for Ukraine. It's like building communities, being in communities, gathering together. It's like, I don't know, it's like our identity. And especially in recent years, we've seen how people come together in moments for new solutions, trying to help each other, to support each other. And well, it's actually amazing, and I think that in Ukraine we have a unique experience and very important, and but we need more structure maybe. And a new challenge we have here in Ukraine is how to cooperate between different communities. Yeah, because
Christina, can I use my facilitator power and ask you to share just a bit of the example of this volunteering community that you developed? You didn't even develop it somehow; it just grew somehow by itself.
Yeah. It's like I have already mentioned it, like magic. Because if you have a real need, people come together and feel that this is the value. This is the moment they can contribute, and you don't need any any other power or motivation or special structure or special procedures and rules. It just happened because we have common value. But at the same time, those communities are very well organized. And sometimes it looks like impossible. How could they have those very structured processes? But maybe that's because of this need, that we don't have any other chance. We just need to unite our skills, our knowledge, and volunteer, because it's important for Ukraine and for Ukrainians both.
What do you guys volunteer in? Could you give just examples of that?
In that community that I'm part of, yeah, you mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I can say that that this is a volunteer community in one IT company, one of the biggest IT company in Ukraine as well. And we have more than 1,000 participants, I can say, communities members, and they are very active. We are doing different projects, both humanitarian projects helping civilian peoples, animals, and so on that now are in not very good circumstances. And also we are helping Ukrainian army forces, and it's like our main priority. Yeah, today our day is to help in different ways, using our experience, our skills, knowledge, competencies, and just making something with our hand. Just sometimes you need just to pack any stuff, and it's okay. Even if you are a great senior, very senior manager, sometimes you need just to pack some boxes because it's a need for Ukrainian army.
I'm not using any powers anymore. I'm giving in. So anybody else? I think, I don't know, Ken or Allah, who was first?
Yeah, what I wanted to tell about the things that motivate me and inspire me in community management, and doing that since 2012, is like the word that was mentioned by Christina. So that's why it's like resonated with me about value. I had been working with project managers and built the community of project managers for years, and that's why they were always challenging me, Allah, what is the value in what we are doing within the community? So I'm like, so focused on that word and on the importance of bringing this value. That's why I think when you see that some people find mentors within the community, or they landed the jobs thanks to the things that they did within the community, because they went to some meetup and they found the right person who gave them advice or inspiration or just good word. This is what the community is. This is what, like, also a side of practical things and a side of learning and skills and hard skills and soft skills can bring that understanding that this is a good community, this is a community where I want to be. That's why I think value, and to bring this value for people and for the business and for the organization where this community is created, and who is driving this community. Yes, this is an important thing that inspired me as well. And I'm like, pro measurable and achievable and strict and interesting, but still understanding like clear things to do within the community, and this value that you can bring to members and to organization.
I will just use my voice here as a facilitator to give a big hand to our translators, who are actually doing an amazing job on the other channel. People are not hearing it right now.
I'm so sorry. I speak too quick. Sorry for that.
No, you are not. I didn't say anything about you, Allah. I'm just saying that the translators, I got a comment on my WhatsApp where we in the team internal are communicating with each other that the channel on the other side is just amazing. And I just wanted to give a bit of praise to our two translators. It sounds almost like you are in a UN conference somewhere. So just to highlight, they are not here. You can't hear them. You can't even see them in this English channel, but they're also there doing some of the work. And that was my way of showing the voices of other people who might not be heard. And Allah, it was not about you at all. Ken, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'd love to share what inspires me about this, because of I see community practice sort of in two different lights. It's a professional tool for us. The learning architects that we have working, they have this as they know how to go out and create a community of practice if that is what is required in the portfolio of learning activities that we need for whatever we're striving to achieve, right? That's a very practical tool to have. It's not necessarily what inspires me. What inspires me about communities of practice is the organic nature of them. The thing that really excites me is when I can just sit back and I don't have to do anything. And communities of practice, just whether or not they call them communities of practice, but they just spring up across, because I think it's one of the most important health metrics that you can have for any kind of either organization or society, is that you see these things spring up. And that is, I think one of your questions earlier was what are we most looking forward to, and that is definitely one of the things that gets me out of bed in the morning is just being part of experiencing that and seeing people come together around these things, and then with very, very few things being able to help them. But yeah, so the organic nature of a community of practice would be
I love what you're saying, and then I'm going to add just a twist to it, because I think there is very organic nature, and there are a lot of Ukrainians in your communities taking the lead. I remember you saying at one point that somehow the Ukrainians are overrepresented in the learning leadership positions that you have in the organization as well, compared to everybody else of the nations. But you have a lot of Ukrainians as well at SimCorp. Just saying, not necessarily a conclusion, but just remember you saying it out loud at one point.
They are significantly overrepresented. This is without going into how we've set things up. Basically, anyone can apply to be a learning owner in our organization. We are around 4,000 people today, and there is a distinct overrepresentation of people from Ukraine in our communities as learning owners for the various areas that we have.
Could you put a few words on what a learning owner is in your context?
So a learning owner is, what we've done in SimCorp is, instead of trying to centralize learning and development in HR, people and culture, or whatever it's called these days, we want to have it as close to the business as possible. And what we do is, instead of hiring in learning specialists and experts, we basically leverage the fact that we have tons of people who are passionate about learning for it, and what they can provide us with is exactly what learning experts usually cannot give us. They know exactly what is needed out there, so they can build the curriculums that we need, and then our learning architects can support them, because then at some point we need to have some kind of experience with learning design and everything else. But this mix of people who come from the business, who know exactly what is needed, who can better than anyone else define what is the learning objective for something, pair them up with someone who then knows how to make it, who has the toolbox, and whether or not that is a course or it's a community of practice, whatever it might be, and they can work together. That's basically how we work. And then they are grouped in what we call learning areas that we try to obviously align with the stuff that SimCorp needs to achieve.
I'm going to ask just one last question to everybody, and if I could ask you to just briefly, 30 seconds to answer that. I'm curious about the communities that you are participating in yourself, back to the question that Christina asked before, just to give a bit of a look to it. And if you would like to share which communities you join, participate, facilitate, just give us one example of something really interesting. And if it's related to Ukraine, that would be double bonus, right? We have some 3 minutes to go. Last question before we move on to the next point on the agenda, where definitely and Phil, I would like to ask you to think already now, like, what is interesting for you, what you are curious about in this conversation that we've had so far. Yeah, and I will just go by the screen. Vlad, what is your community you're participating in or joining? You already mentioned 3 examples. Is there anything specific for Ukraine that you would like to highlight?
I think the most specific, and which is not usually looked through the perspective of community management, is the sport clubs. And I think my favorite is like my triathlon club, which I'm training with. They don't really know about community management, and they don't read books about it, but this like natural community building around common passion, common thing that everybody likes is really great, and how the different community like things creates inside of it. So yeah, I think it's one of the special.
I can see Phil is already joining your community somehow in the chat at least, or joining forces, building communities in that respect. What about you, Alla? Any other community examples? If you already mentioned the 42 countries and the community manager stories as well. For you personally, which communities do you go to?
During the last years, I've been working with ML engineers, AI researchers, data scientists, and building communities around them and engaging them. And we made event with an awesome chapter from Paris, Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, and it was an awesome event. And after that, I decided I want to be a part of this organization, and I started to build Lviv chapter in Ukraine. So I've created it, and now we are like investigating on what is happening within the domain for data scientists and ML engineers, and we're creating space where women can share their experience. We're promoting the research papers written by women, and also like we welcome everyone, but the experts who are represented and who share their experience are women, because this is a core concept of this awesome project. It's a big project with a lot of chapters all over the world, and I think it's great to be a part of it. So I'm trying my best here, and I think that local communities of women are extremely important, and I'm happy to be part of it.
No, I remember in Denmark we also have some struggles sometimes having women enough. I mean, Ken, you know that. We actually worked on some of this at one point as well. What about you? Which communities do you see? And I will probably ask a very reframed question to you. In Ukraine, what new communities do you see in your organization in Ukraine kind of being born or growing out of that context? If there is something, doesn't have to be.
No, but I think if we look beyond the profession, because obviously in professional terms, we're a software company, tons of stuff happening around AI and communities are springing up all over the place. But I think we're seeing a lot of what you're also involved with, Christina, with the volunteer communities that go out and support everything from the armed forces to people who are wounded to people who just need help. This is what we've been seeing pretty much since the beginning of the war.
Which one community are you in then, yourself? Sorry for interrupting.
This is going to sound really, really bad, and it's strictly speaking not a community, but I am a bit of a foodie, and there is a really, really good community that recommends all the best restaurants in Kiev that I'm...
Oh, people will love that one. Share in the notes, in the chat.
So unfortunately, that is probably where I spent most of my private time.
Do share a link in the chat if you have one. How about you, Christina? I'll go on to Christina Jablonska.
Okay.
You are the next on my screen. I have to practice my pronunciation in Ukrainian.
Yeah. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Well, actually, today I have two very important events. One of this event is now we are here, the presentation of translation of Guidebook, and the second one, I hope I will join it. It's a gathering of communities of Institute of Leadership and Management of Ukrainian Catholic University. And I'm not sure if Vlad will join this event too. No, it's a pity. But I am still hoping to join them today, as I'm also a part of those amazing people that gather together, and they are developing non-government organizations in Ukraine and no-government sector. So it's also one of the biggest part of my life, except communities building. Yeah.
Thank you. And now Christina Merchik, and then we'll go over to Bevерлey and Phil.
Also just very briefly, also my really favorite examples of communities, also volunteering in Ukraine. It's now also a boot program to support this transfer of the women in IT and creative area. And yeah, I'm also today also jumping to the next meetings and learning more about the details on this very interesting development journey of this incredible woman.
Which would mean to be, right? Be. And it's a female kind of community. Wonderful. I'm saying thank you to everybody. I think we thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you're already connecting to each other. I could hear that. I could see it in the chat. And I'm sure that people will probably continue talking to each other if there is a chance. At least somebody is in Kyiv once in a while. I can see a few people being located there. I would like to ask Bevерлі, Етьєн, and Phil to maybe just highlight if something resonated somehow in our conversation here, if you noticed something that's interesting or you are curious about. It doesn't have to be anything hugely significant, but any tiny detail could be interesting to see. What are you hearing as we talk?
Well, one thing that that it made me think of is I was just wondering if anybody's writing up or thinking of writing up a case study of the community of practice they're working on in Ukraine, because I think that would be interesting and what, you know, especially if there are multiple of them, you know, what we can see across, you know, across that. And it also occurred to me that, you know, I think it'd be hugely interesting to monitor in some way, and case studies would be one way to do it, but how does a CoP intervention, or how do these multiple community of practice interventions contribute to building a country that has been at war and, you know, is, you know, caring to make a difference, and where people really are forging a new way ahead? I think that would be, I mean, if I had another life, I would I would do that. But I am really very curious to know. So if there's ever any follow-up on that, yeah, do tell me.
Thank you, Bevерлі. I think Victoria will probably take note on that question that you posed.
I don't want to make your project any bigger.
I don't know whether you wanted it or not. We already made a mental kind of note of an idea. We are good at collecting more ideas, right? Yeah, Beth, or sorry, Beth, Etьєн, or Phil. Was there anything that, I know, Phil, you are already talking about writing and everything else with Vlad, and that's amazing. But yeah, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would just echo what Bev said. I think it would be fascinating to know more about specific case studies on different communities. It's a lot along the lines of what I said earlier about the context being different, but still people getting value from it. So that would be great. One thing I would like to ask, though, is along the lines of what Ken said about finding inspiration when communities spring up on their own. What I find inspirational is when you're in a community setting and you see people with the light bulb moments, you know, their eyes light up and they write something down. Love seeing those learning moments happening. And then definitely dopamine hits of watching communities grow. That's definitely a thing that I love to see, is just seeing more and more people joining because they see the value. But I'd like to ask the group, what's the thing that you find inspirational? What's the thing that keeps you going and curious? If you had to name one thing, I'll ask any of the group to answer that.
I will keep quiet. I think somebody else should answer. Yeah. If you would like to. Natalia, maybe, or Victoria. I knew Phil is going to ask us a question because he told me he's going to ask a question. Back to the group.
Maybe we would also give a word to our audience. Please share in the chat what your ideas about how what you have heard today might change your practice. About what what ideas you got from this meeting. What are you taking away from these 2 hours?
Thank you, Victoria, for taking over from me.
Put your ideas in the chat, and while you are typing, we have a clarifying from Phil. what do you find inspirational, either in your involvement in communities of practice or from our meeting today? І Наталія відповідає. Natalia has answered. Unity, warmth, passion. Alla?
You know, I think that community managers are people who are always doing something, and we don't have much time to look behind and look aside, and we are just working, working, and working. But when you are reading such books as this one, when you are checking some resources, when you are joining such events as this one, you can get proof of your ability to do awesome things, and that you are already doing them in a correct way, you know? And that's why I think these events and books and activities are extremely important, because you can get a proof of your awesomeness, you can get a proof of the things that you already found out how to do, but here you can see and you can give to your stakeholders the idea that you're doing it by book or by some awesome people, other awesome people who already had a lot of cases, had already eaten a dog, as we say in Ukraine, sort of this. And that's what I think is important in such meetings, and in getting those books in our hands and checking them and see, yeah, this is the right thing that I'm doing.
Thank you. So thank you very much for your engagement. Olga, one more. And
just gonna clarify that I think Phil is asking everybody to engage in his question as well, and we didn't give Etьєн time to speak, but I think Etьєн, we can go back to you at any time, right, and speak. Will be another reason to have another conversation. But yeah, I like Phil just engaging in the chat with everybody and asking a question to everybody from his side. I will give it over back to you, Victoria. I know you
I would maybe
also
answer very fast the question of Phil. Also, I think it's briefly it's the people behind, no? But you find inspirational. So it's always about the people that you met and that you're working with, and the communities, or also that we met today. So it's really hard to find this as a kind of people if you are looking for them. So it's this value.
Thank you, Christine. Well, thank you all very much for your engagement, for your care. And we are deeply grateful to all our speakers that you find your time and opportunity to be with us today through these 2 hours. We hope that the Ukrainian edition of a book will be ready maybe in 10 or 14 days on 100%. And we put it on Etьєn's and Bevерлі's website. You have a link in the chat. And we will write about this new everywhere. On our LinkedIn page, in Knowledge Management in Ukraine community group, on Alla Zhdan's website, and of course on our personal pages, pages of our project team. So you will hear from us, and you will see this link, and you can download this book for free. Also, you can rewatch this. Excuse me?
Announcement. Just on my email feed, I just saw that the ISBN agency has just delivered an ISBN for the Ukrainian translation of the guidebook. So you're officially now in the ISBN database.
Yeah, we waited for it. Great.
Yeah, it just came.
Okay, now it's not 95%, but 97%. we already have an ISBN, and it's a great news. Oh, okay, so you can rewatch and share the recording of today's meeting. We'll put the English version on our LinkedIn page, and I'll put the Ukrainian version on my YouTube channel, Knowledge Management in Ukraine. If you wish, you can share this recording with your colleagues, and we encourage you to share the recording, your impressions of this event, and of course the link to the book with your friends and colleagues, with all people who, as you think, can benefit from it, and maybe even on your social media. We believe that the future belongs to communities, and so we want as many people as possible to know about this guide and use the knowledge that the authors have lovingly and very generously preserved in this guidebook to support the growth of your communities. Once again, thank you, and we wish you a peaceful and quiet weekend.